To effectively communicate, we must realize that we are different in the way we perceive the world, and use this understanding as a guide to our communication with others. Today I'll be presenting the illusion of a toolbox as how we communicate in our everyday lives. Every single one of us shows daily the skill mechanisms we use to communicate at work, home, school, with our parents, or our significant other. Throughout this speech, I want you to think about your own toolbox and how these three tools fit in with your everyday life. The tool first is self-awareness as a magnifying glass. Second is meta-communication as a meter reader or a code reader, and empathy as a pair of work boots. First in my toolbox, I have self-awareness. I compare self-awareness to a magnifying glass because in order to be self-aware, you must look closer beneath the surface. When you aren't capable of looking at yourself within, you won't realize that your strengths or weaknesses are. Much like a magnifying glass, we as individuals must be able to look closer in the situations we put ourselves into and ask, how can we be better next time? In recent study by Tasha Urich and her team, they found that being self-aware is a rare quality and only 10 to 15% of people they studied fit the criteria. Urich also states in her research that there are two types of being self-aware. First being internal self-awareness and second being external self-awareness. Leaders must be able to see themselves both clearly and also be able to handle constructive criticism on how others view them. In their study, the people who were highly self-aware were vigorously focused on balancing the scales. As someone who has children looking up to them, I try to take responsibility for my own actions so that I can demonstrate how you become a better person every day or a better person than you were yesterday. My middle son is in speech therapy. Due to him not being able to speak very well, he gets super frustrated and at times inconsolable. He tries to explain to his father and I what he needs or wants, and sometimes we just don't understand him. So with that being said, we get super frustrated also because we don't know as parents how to communicate with his language or the way that he wants to communicate with us. So we have to look closer at ourselves and figure out how we as parents can be better to help him be better. We are working every day to identify what we can do to help him and for us to be self-aware. My two specific actions that I will use to sharpen this tool are centered around not seeking power or experience. I will focus on working on myself every day. Experience and power give us the illusion that we have nothing that we should be self-aware of. I will also enforce looking into what and not why. Much like being self-aware, in order to be a skillful communicator, we also have to look into meta-communication and how that affects our communication with others around us. That is the second tool in my toolbox, and I compare meta-communication to a code reader because sometimes you need to be able to read someone's body language, tone of voice, or facial expressions to understand their underlying meaning with their words. When looking into meta-communication, our brains are constantly interpreting signals from all around us and the people that we communicate with. Just as Dr. Marie Hartwell Walker stated in her article, one way to learn meta-communication is by not assuming what someone says. Each person has their own code. Gregory Bateson in the 1970s deemed the word to describe the messages in the what we say or do. Meta-communication is communication about communication. Sometimes when speaking with my significant other, I tend to say things that he might not understand or he interprets differently than I wanted him to, or vice versa. The steps I will take to be better in this skill would be to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. I will exercise being able to stop myself and say, hey, what might have really been meaning something else by that? It is remarkable to think of all the ways we communicate from our feelings and thoughts, or from our culture into the language we speak. All of these are a part of our communication in everyday life. Lastly, I will be discussing empathy as our last tool in this tool bag. I compare empathy to a pair of work boots. Empathy is quite literally being able to walk in someone else's shoes. We must be able to understand the actions and emotions of others. In the 1800s, German psychologist Theodor Lipps defined the term as Jungfernlung, meaning in feeling. Medical doctor James Hardy stated in his article that empathy used to be something one thought was unteachable, but now it is believed that empathy is obtainable and a learnable skill. In another article written by Kendra Cherry, she states there are 3 different types of empathy: affective empathy, somatic empathy, and cognitive empathy. Ways I have personally shown empathy is by being there for my sister and knowing what it is like to have to spend money unexpectedly, or I empathize with my friend when her significant other had passed away. Although I have not experienced it personally, my feelings could relate to what she was enduring. Action steps to improve this tool would be to remember to always be kind. You never know the life someone has at home or what they are going through. Staying open-minded and relatable will go a long ways with emphasizing. Communication is one of the most vital and commonly used forms of language. You communicate even when not communicating. I hope today you learned a few things about yourself and that I could open your mind to your own toolbox. Being self-aware, showing empathy, and using meta-communication are just a small fraction of our communication skills. Keep in mind, effective communication is 20% what you know and 80% how you feel about it.